Joining us this morning is retired Flight Lieutenant Terry Ajobena. He's a security expert looking at what form of success we have made by the trip. Good morning and thanks for joining us this morning, and I'm quite sure you are excited. You were here with us when we started looking at some of these issues concerning the fight against insurgency in Nigeria's northeast. Are you satisfied with the amount of air raid and bombardment and the amount of success we've gathered? Well, I hope we still have you there, Flight Lieutenant Terry Ajobena. We're trying to analyze and see how much of good we have been able to get from the relative success, a huge one, some would say, from the Nigerian troop. Are you satisfied?
If I read you well, you're asking if I'm satisfied with the progress being made, the military front, with the northeast situation.
Absolutely.
Yes, I think like every other Nigerian, we are pleased with the news that is coming up from the northeast. I'm hardly surprised because I've always had confidence in our military, and I had no doubt that we would achieve success on that front. But as you know, that's just one side or one aspect of this fight. But good enough for getting the news, the kind of news that we're getting now.
When you say this is just one aspect of the fight, well, the news is that so many of them have on their own come out to surrender, while some have fled the much dreaded Sambisa forest. What does this tell you?
Well, it's indicative of, I think, the strength of our military and the fact that these objectives were set out and they've been executed, and we're getting the results we are getting. So I think I've said this a couple of times. There is no doubt that our military has the capacity to take on these insurgents. But like I've told you, or like I've said, this is just one aspect of the fight. There's the military side, which, good enough for achieving these victories. It's pleasing to hear, but we know that we are still some ways from completely dealing or addressing this issue of this insurgency as a whole.
What exactly do you picture when you say we still some ways to go?
Yes, as it's clearly shown, and I'm speaking historically, you will find out that what usually happens when you begin to have these types of success, or you begin to score these types of victories during a fight such as this one, the insurgents or the enemy would take on different approaches, because again, you can't say their resolve to carry out their activities ends with a military confrontation. So definitely they'll resort to other aspects of in trying to push their own fight. So that's why we are going to be witnessing, and I think it's obvious, we are going to be witnessing a lot of lone wolf attacks, attacks that are not necessarily military. So yeah, that's one thing we are going to have to deal with going forward. We need to begin to look inwards, because you are going to now start having likelihood of having strikes at civilian targets and other targets away from the fronts where the military is combating them.
No questions, a lot of people will say that we've already seen that, in the past couple of months, we've seen a lot of suicide attacks, some of them coordinated, others, less coordinated in nature. But then some people will say that when you're able to cut off the head or disorganize the head, what you will find is that there might not be that propensity for the attacks. You still think that they will still want to carry out this lone suicide bombings just for the heck of it?
Again, that theory has, I think, with the fight that we've seen. I'm speaking with reference to the fight the West is fighting against Al Qaeda. You see that theory of having to cut off the head, hoping that would neutralize or that would eventually kill off any insurgency or any terrorist campaign, has been proven not to be entirely true. Because you have a situation where you cut off the head and then it morphs into something else. Other aspects, or they go into splinters and they still continue with their activities. So, and I don't want to, I prefer to be cautious about all of this and not to be too optimistic, thinking that, okay, because we are scoring these successes militarily, these guys or the Boko Haram will not resort to other means in trying to further their own cause.
Well, some people will say that your cautiousness is in order because the Boko Haram sect is known to be suicidal, as it were. They use all sorts of means to achieve their aims, most of them unconventional. The question then would be, what do we do with people who have surrendered? People who you know could commit suicide just to ensure that, you know, they do damage. How do we handle that sort of situation?
Well, this is where the law enforcement side of this comes in. Yes, we are going to record a lot of these types of arrests. There are going to be those who will surrender under the pressure of the sustained campaign by our military. Now we need to let the law enforcement side of this thing kick in. This is where you will require the police force, you will require the Ministry of Justice, and begin to let them do their own thing. I believe that everybody has the necessary training and necessary capacity to be able to do what they are supposed to do. So that's the next step. We cannot leave everything for the military to do.
They're not prisoners. Are they prisoners of?
And that's what they're doing now.
Are they called prisoners of war too?
Pardon?
Are they also known as prisoners of war?
Well, that would by definition, you would say a prisoner of war is one who is arrested or who is taken when you are fighting a conventional war. But in this instance, this is not a conventional army that we are up against. We are looking at terrorists, and I as a person, and this is me, would not classify them as prisoners of war. However, it is a complex situation. In the U.S., they had to set up camp, and as we all know, the Guantanamo Bay set up camp, and they've chosen to address or to deal with the law and the criminal justice arrangement of using military courts in some instance. It's something we probably may need to look at, but off the hat, I think the first step would be to make sure that as they're taking as they're taking prisoners, or as we make these arrests, we should get the police involved. We need to find a proper criminal justice approach to dealing with those who have surrendered or those who have been taken as prisoners.
Let's talk more about morale of our troops, which is one key thing that a whole lot of people have commended the new army chief doing. How does this operate? You have been in the military. When you see your commander lead you, does that make any difference?
Yes, it definitely does. Yeah, one of the things that any commander should be able to do is to be able to inspire your troops, and it's fundamentally important. It's pleasing to see the Chief of Army Staff demonstrating and making his presence be felt, because sometimes there's a tendency for when troops are in operations like this to feel detached from the headquarters, but when you have the very heads making or coming, being present, having that visual or that contact with the troops, definitely it inspires.
The Air Force has greatly shown its might in this fight recently by their aerial bombardment, which a whole lot have praised. What else would you love to see from the airmen?
Just sustain the efforts. I'd initially been concerned that whether we had the right platforms or the right tools to be able to prosecute that aspect of the campaign. But I'm glad to see that we're making the progress that we've made. Personally, I'm particularly proud because, of course, that's their constituency. So I can only give them a thumbs up and encourage them